seminar on mental health, possibilities for the effectivation of policy anti-asylum with the judiciary. We are going to invite to the table the authorities, the presidents of the Justice Court in Paraná, Luiz Fernando Tomás Kepping, the Council Supervisor of the Monitoring Department, from the Juvenile Justice System, Mauro Pereira Martins, State Council, Marcel Sulaki, representing Legislative in Paraná, Supervisor of the Inspection of the Prison System and also Juvenile Justice System, GMF, here in the Justice Court in Paraná, Rui Mugiati, the General Director of the Judicial School, Ramon de Medeiro Nogueira, the National Secretariat on Drug Policy of the Justice Minister, Dr. Marta Machado, National Secretariat of Dr. Avaleo Brandani, the National Secretariat of the Minister of Health, Elcio Miranda Magalhães Jr., State Secretariat of Health, Beto Preto, also the General Prosecutor in the State of Paraná, Gilberto Giacoia, representing the National Council of the Prosecutors for the Public Ministry of the States and the Union. The presidents of the Judge Association in Brazil, Dr. Frederico Mendes Jr., the presidents of Human Rights Commission and Federal Council, Anderson Rodrigo Ferreira, representing the judges, the lawyers in Brazil, Public Defensor, General Public Defensor, Dr. André Ribeiro Gianberardino. Also, the other authorities that compose the table, the consultancy of the alcohol addiction from the Pan American Association and also WHO, the World Health Organization, Dr. Cláudia Braga, the auxiliary judge of the presidency of the Justice Council and coordinator of the Department of Inspection of the Prison System and the Juvenile Justice System, from the National Council of Justice, Dr. Luiz Geraldo Santana Nanfredi. Also the auxiliary assistant judge from the National Council of Justice, Dr. Edinaldo César Jr., Judge Márcia Milanês, representing the presidency of the court in Minas Gerais, and we would like to thank the participation of the board here of the National Council of Justice, Judge Joeci Machado Camargo. We would like to thank the members for supervision of the judges, Ivanise Maria Tratz Martins, the State Coordinator for Infants and Teenagehood, Dr. Salih. Also present in this event, the General Director of the Secretariat of Health in Paraná, César Augusto Neves. Also the General Director of the State Secretariat of Public Safety, Adilson Luiz Lucas Bruci. The Director of the Prison System, Osvaldo Messias Machado. The Director of the Secretary of Justice and Citizenship, Dr. Mahafon. Beatriz Batistella, Also the State Council of OAB Paraná, Dr. Eduardo Tomera. We would like to thank the presence of our Assistant Judge, Dr. Fernanda Carandi Sueri Sanchez, and we would like to thank now the presence of other judges, public servers, lawyers, authorities from the executive, legislative, civil, and military sectors. We would invite the people to hear the national anthem. Now we would like to thank also the presence of the Assistant Judge of the Presidency of the National Council of Justice, Dr. Karen Luiz Villanova. This seminar has as a goal to promote the debate on the application of the safety measures in the case of adults and some protective measures and social educative measures for teenagers from a paradigm of protection of the fundamental rights and full attention articulated with the national health system and also with the social protection net in general. In compliance with Law 10216 from 2001, and also the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the Brazilian Law of Inclusion with Persons with Disabilities, and the Statute of the Persons with Disabilities, and other international and national norms to enhance and instrumentalize the judges and all the judiciary system and executive system to ensure the constitutional right to health. And I would like to thank also the presence of the Judge Maria do Carmo from the Federal Court in the First Region. Thank you for your presence. To open this seminar, we are going to hand it over to the President of the Justice Court, Judge Luiz Fernando Tomasi Keppen. I would like to invite the protection of God, and I would like to open this seminar, and I hope the first words I will say here is to greet you all those who come to the Court of Justice in the state of Paraná. I would like also to greet especially the judge Mauro Pereira Martins, which is the counselor of the National Council of Justice, and also now a state judge, and who I consider and admire. I would like also to greet Marcia Usulaki, representing here the legislative sector in Paraná. Marcia is a colleague today in the legislative, and she was our secretariat. And we know her just as Marcia, but she helped us to drive, to sail through the pandemic, and she is a dear person to all of us. I would like also to greet the judge, Rui Mugiati, also coordinator of our GMF, also our general director, who is an executive coordinator of this Congress, who worked a lot for this to happen. Also the National Secretariat of Policies on Drugs, and from the Ministry of Justice, Dr. Marta Machado, also Rafael Velasco Brandani, also the National Secretariat of Attention Specialized on Health from the Ministry of Health, Elvésio Magalhães Jr., also our State Secretariat, Beto Preto, who also had a fantastic conduction of the pandemic during the hard period of the pandemic here in the state of Paraná, who was also leading the secretary at this time. He was in charge of the Secretary of Health, and together with Marcia conducted all the actions. Also the prosecutor Gilberto Giacoia, here representing the National Council of Prosecutor. Also the president of the association, Odouto Frederico Mendes Jr., I call him Fred. We know him as Fred. Frederico, our friend, it's very good to have you here with us. He also has an extraordinary work leading our OMB. Also greeting the president of a Human Rights Commission, Anderson Rodrigues Ferreira, representing the OAB here in Brazil, and also the public defensor, André Gian Berardino, and also the National Counselor on Alcohol and Other Drugs from the Pan American Association of Health, Dr. Cláudia Braga. Now I would like to especially mention a dear friend of mine, a colleague, a judge from São Paulo, Dr. Luiz Geraldo Santana Lanfredi. He coordinates DMF, and when I was there in the National Council of Justice, I can give my testimony on how much he works for it, how much he is engaged and dedicated to this cause. And I also would like to mention the Judge Márcia Milanês, who came here from Minas Gerais to represent the court there in Minas, and for us is always a reason of pride. I would like to greet all the other participants, colleagues, judges, also lawyers who are here, members of the public ministry, all those who are here working with us in the Justice Court, who are today here participating in this important international seminar on mental health. It's a big honor for us here. It is in the best position in the rank. So it is an honor to hold this seminar that is done in partnership with the National Council of Justice to foster the debate on mental health, especially the policy, the anti-asylum policy. It is the first seminar on the topic, and it is international, which is being hosted here in Brazil. So I would like to greet everyone who will join, who will be with us in these 2 days, in a typical end of autumn season with rain and cold here in Curitiba. But Brazil, this giant country here in the south of America, the biggest producer of grains, the 4th economy here, and the Curitiba, which is the ecological capital and also the innovation capital. So you know that all of you are very welcome here. So a warm welcome to you here in Curitiba. Joyce, who is also here, I would like to thank for her presence. So it's an event that puts us together to debate on the topic, the anti-asylum policy. So together we can understand the challenges of this policy and improve its implementation, always looking at the rights of people who are in the prison system and juvenile justice system, working and strengthening the multidisciplinary attention on the human care of these persons in compliance with the law to ensure their fundamental rights and giving them constant attention on social safety as well. Brazil, from the governor of the President Fernando Henrique Cardoso, with the law 10216 from 2001 that disposes the protection of the persons with the mental health and directed some social part, and for that it has been evolving on the topic, at least for the judiciary, the edition of this resolution 487 from 2003, now in February, that included this anti-asylum policy. It's a national debate on the topic, and I hope this important seminar can collaborate with this debate, and we are going to ensure appropriate treatment for these people with mental diseases or any other kind of psychosocial disability. I hope everyone have a great event, and I will hand it over to the court.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear from the supervisor for the monitoring group and inspection team, and also for the juvenile system from the TJ Paraná judicial system here, Rumajinachi. Mr. President of this event, Judge Luis Fernando Tomás Kempe, I excuse myself for the sake of greeting everyone who have already been mentioned previously. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, we are here today witnessing a historical fact, really, which is to promote such a international event on mental health. The idea is to have a policy anti-asylum together with the judiciary system. When it comes to judiciary policies, the council here in Brazil is the legal council, the justice council is the one who is in charge of this in the national life. This policy doesn't come from nothing. It does come from those pillars that were designed in the constitutional letter, and those are the based on the norms that found our society. Why is it important to define these policies? Well, if we look at this any legal or judiciary worker as a architect for these things, when we look at the guidelines that should be observed, we see that the action of such professionals should work for the common good. Just like an architecture project will make it possible for all construction workers to follow the plan and build a certain building. It is this way, in this same manner, that our professionals that have been following what is the guidelines defined by the justice system, we work in a collective manner to build the common good together with all partners involved. When it comes to the society model, which comes from our main letter, our constitutional letter, this is what we aim as Brazilians. All Brazilians aim for that. And this is what politics is for. When it comes to Hannah Arendt's philosophical thinking, politics is based on the plurality of mankind. God has created mankind, and we are a product. We have a mundane product and also a human nature product. Politics has to do with the living together of different people. So we see the plurality of people who live together, and this comes together as the concept of politics, as at the center of politics. Well, as we hear from Magison, this has to do with this interchange, this experience, humans, men and women, not angels. Well, it means that life has to be managed through a state that has the monopoly of power and impedes war and prevents war from everyone to everyone. When it comes to the absolute freedom of every human being amongst themselves, we look at this the postmodern era, and as we were looking at the concept of the historical subject, of the historical individual, authentic and responsible, capable of self-determined, self-shaping their own identity, well, we see that diversity, looking at the diversity of peoples, nations, races, we see that the creation of humankind from God is based on plurality, but politics does not have to do with that. Politics has to do with organizing those diversity levels, looking at the relative equality, and also in counterpart the relative differences between people. In this context, the first article of the Human Rights Declaration brings us this concept. Every human being is born free and equal, have dignity and rights. They have reason and consciousness, and they should act upon one another in the spirit of brotherhood, of fraternity. Well, the question here is, what is the meaning of politics in this sense? Again, Anna Arendt helps us and she tells us, simple answer. It's very conclusive, really, and you could find other answers to be dispensable with, and the answer should be the sense of politics is to promote freedom. It's freedom itself. Well, I would add and say that it is freedom, sure. It is a construction. It is a collective construction. It comes through autonomy. It comes through the will of the collective when it comes to designing laws, exercising autonomy, individual autonomy, looking at the faculty of acting according to law. Well, all of this is based on the common sense of human dignity, supreme value, and extremely important for the judiciary system. And this is reciprocal when it comes to all members of the judiciary community, especially when one acts towards towards the other in the spirit of fraternity, respect, consideration. Well, when we look at this perspective, we recognize that dignity for every human being exists, and we should be able to look at those vulnerabilities that have to do with human relations in its concrete manifestations. Well, Natalie France used to say that it's not just freedom, formal freedom. This allows rich and poor to sleep, under a bridge. This is not the freedom we're talking about. When we look at judiciary system, looking at the material level, a relationship between human beings, this was identified by Max Weber as a failure. The failure is that the formal content of law should guarantee equality for everyone in the face of the law. So, but this development has become, ever stronger, as we hear from Norberto Relvio, when a legislator sees necessity to treat different people, different manners, through mechanisms of compensation, trying to recover or protect the principle of equality in its concrete sense. Law develops because we can identify issues that had not been previously identified and give its necessary treatment. So necessary laws are for necessary situations, and vulnerabilities that did not exist before suddenly exist. Well, Orlando Gomez tells us about the development of a legal thought that even if it's before, the matter of law and of rules was in a code. Today we see micro legal systems together with those codes of conduct. Well, we see, for example, consumer law, we see, for example, person with disability law, Maria da Penha law, etc., speaking of Brazilian law. And here we look at, for example, labor law and its specificities. Well, we see vulnerabilities, we see that this affects people, those who are deprived of freedom. We have been able to identify those at the legislative level, and we see that the legal and the penal code guarantees rights for those people who are in the prison system in many aspects. Well, it so happens that looking at these vulnerabilities, we see that we can identify other vulnerabilities, such as, they cross and they become intertwined. So, for example, mental health is one of them. So, when we look at the reciprocal element of equality for everyone, to everyone, when it comes to equality and law, when we look at the bigger network of laws, of rights, of this produces the force that is necessary to rescue treatment which is oftentimes unequal and degrading for those people who are vulnerable in conflict with the law, who suffer privation of freedom in the prison system, and that those especially with mental diseases or any sort of psycho issue. So there's no space for that. When we look for any sort of giving in that sense, we accept this premise. We understand the weight of the responsibility that is brought by this political participation. We look at this participative freedom. It gives us the power to look at how we deal with these matters and how we handle discussions on these issues, and these issues are going to be brought for debate, and those will be reflective of our convictions, of the community, of the political community. and for those, it will reflect through priorities, strategies, actions, plans, goals surrounding this theme. When we look at this grand event, well, we wish that we can really fulfill our goals, and this is a positive event with positive outcomes. And at the end of this event, we hope to have contributed in an effective manner to construct a more just, fraternal, and solidary community and society. Thank you. Well, now we'd like to invite the General Director of the Judiciary School of Paraná, Judge Ramon Nogueira. Good morning, President Luis Fernando Tomás, all authorities here present and greeted. We had 2 judges added to our team. Judge Leonise, who is here with us, Senator Judge Priscilla. We are very happy to be here with you. We are from the school, the Judiciary School of Paraná. We are very happy to have you here so that we can have this seminar on mental health and the possibility of anti-asylum policies when it comes to the relationship with the judiciary system, the Justice Tribunal and the judiciary system of Paraná being integrated in this project. We want to promote a debate on mental health. We want to consider national and international guidelines when it comes to human rights, especially anti-asylum policies in Brazil, analyzing how the judiciary and executive system and society itself can contribute to the implementation of measures. So we heard just now a speech from my colleague, and it is this so. I mean, we see how important this is, how important this topic is. Well, we also have heard Marcia, Secretary Beto Preto. We are very happy to have you here. Such wonderful professionals, doctors, psychologists, experts from Brazil and from abroad who are here. So it is a pleasure to have you here. It's very important to have these events, to have events such as these. I remember, as if it were today, when we received a call, and I received a call saying that that we should have this event, that we should make it happen, that we should we have President Capping. We've had this relationship for a long time, and basically in the year 2009, 2021, we worked together, and they understood how relevant this topic is, how important it is to build these relationships. And it's been 100 days, Your Excellency was following us, how hard the team was working, and we see so many people who came, who registered for this event. So we're very happy to have so many people here. So I'd like to thank Dr. Melina from CNJ and Dr. Daniel. I really want to appreciate everyone who participated in making sure that this event would be a reality, to have so many authorities and experts who are here with us. So it is with joy that we receive all of you. We have a special in our school. We have so much to know, and we should seek more knowledge. Thank you, and I wish you all a great event. Now I'd like to invite National Secretary for Special Attention in Health from the Ministry of Health, Elvésio Miranda Magalhães Jr. Good morning. everyone, all authorities here present from the Tribunal of Justice, Court of Justice here. It's great to be here with you. I'd like to, in the name of Justice Lisa Trindade, we are very happy to have been invited. Dr. Lanfred, also the President. I'd like to greet the President for the National Council of Justice from the Supreme Court, Minister Rosa Weber. Congratulations on this initiative, and for us, from the Ministry of Health, you know, we come from the same constitution, and we are here in the Justice House, right? The House of Justice, in the House of Rights. So it is really a satisfaction to be here and to gather our strengths to fight for human rights, health. This topic brings us together, you know, to fulfill, to be in compliance with the law, to it is something that, you know, unites us and animates our spirit, you know, all of the judiciary system and the whole and the Brazilian NHS and all states that are connected to this through the connections of the Ministry of Health. Well, we want to bring back this work, you know, which was abandoned, you know, and we want to offer the rights to so many people who are in the prison system, who have mental illnesses, and to be able to be connected to this network of mental health services. From the year 2001, this was a very, you know, upfront legislation back in 2001. We were looking at the apparatus that existed, and we are looking at the thousands of people who are being treated correctly. So we see that we need to bring, when we look at the asylums, from the judiciary asylums, we need to bring this experience, we need to have this strengthened by the judiciary system, and to have this analysis, and we are very happy to be part of this. We see that the Brazilian NHS system is very, you know, willing to you know, fulfill this, and we are here to congratulate this initiative. Dr. Lanfred in the CNJ really helping us out with this. I mean, we're very happy, you know, together with our government officials to be part of this work. Congratulations, and I wish you a great event. Thank you.
Now we're going to invite to the floor the National Secretariat of Prison Policies, Rafael Velasco Brandani. I would like to greet everyone on the person of Judge Luis Tomás Kepi. Thank you, Dr. Luis Nalfredi, for all the commitment, the invitation for this great event. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here today on such engaged people, commitment with justice and public health. I would like to thank everyone for taking part in this seminar and the importance of the anti-asylum system, which is an important topic for the prison system. At this moment, at the National Secretariat, it's with great enthusiasm and responsibility that I bring a message from the Minister of Public Safety, Flávio Dino. Minister Dino understands the importance of the policy which is proposed, and he is willing to cooperate and make efforts for the success of this initiative. The minister determined that SENAPEM, in the person of the Secretariat who is here talking to you, involves the other state secretariats of justice and the prison system in the process, in order to ensure the implementation of this. Understanding his responsibility as the Minister of Justice and Public Safety, Mr. Dino understands firmly that the participation and commitment of the states is crucial to establish an open debate with all the federative units to listen their perspectives and their needs for a best cooperation to this important initiative. It is with this commitment in mind that we commit ourselves, and we will be in the next days in the capital here of Paraná with all the state secretariats, and we propose to them an open dialogue, constructive dialogue around the anti-asylum policy, around all the understanding that will be presented in this important event. So I would like to invite all the authorities, especially the National Council of Justice, to participate in another important debate to bring better understanding for the secretariats and the people who work in the prison system to build a bridge of cooperation. Our goal is to have a comprehensive council and to make sure that everyone can be heard on this fight anti-asylum. This is a fair and necessary topic. It treats to ensure dignity and human rights for people who suffer with mental disorders, including the prison system. By adopting such this collaborative methodology and listening to all the perspectives and needs, we can build a solid policy and efficient that will attend the society as a whole. So we are going to bring this document to the National Council of Justice in a short term, which will reflect the consensus reached by the states and for a efficient implementation of this in the country, reaching significant results. So I would like to thank everyone for understanding and supporting this process. This is a fundamental moment for this, and the presence of each of you and your cooperation here today shows the commitment that we share with the cause. Thank you very much, and I wish a great event to all of you. And now we would invite to the floor the National Secretariat on Policy on Drugs and the Ministry of Justice, Dr. Marta Machado. Good morning, everyone. I would like to greet everyone here, all the authorities in this event, in the opening, in the presence of Your Excellence. I would like to thank for the organization of this seminar, for the invitation to participate in this very important debate on the policy, the anti-drug policy in the country. Representing the entity for the articulation on the drug policy in Brazil, I would like to congratulate the National Council of Justice for the initiative to have a law regarding the anti-asylum policy. So I would like now here to greet and to compliment Dr. Luis Lanfredi, who has been leading this action of the National Council of Justice to ensure fundamental rights. I think it's worth mentioning that 4A7 law from 2003 do not establish new commitments, but it regulates the implementation and the effectiveness of what is already ensured in different norms, especially Law 10216 from 2001, from 22 years ago, that disposes the assistance for people with mental disorders. By doing so, treating these people with mental disorders or any other kind of psychosocial disorders that are being held in different situations, the resolution would have fundamental guidelines to ensure the rights of this population. It is worth mentioning also that it is going to implement what is said, what is in the law, and it is aligned with the international guidelines of the UN on human rights and anti-drug policy, and also is a response to the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the Ximenes-Lopez case, also obligations that demand attention of all the Brazilian entities involved with the topic of mental health. In that sense, the action of the National Council of Justice also meets what the National Council for mutual cooperation between the entities, the public minister and other powers, legislative, executive, on the field of anti-drugs policies. The challenges of having this policy that would respect fully human rights would demand for an action, intersectoral action, with the executive and judiciary. So here I would like to reinforce my commitment to support everything that we can for the implementation of this resolution in the country, and I would like to mention this meeting. I would like to thank for this meeting so we can make good advancements in that sense. Thank you very much. Now we are going to hand it over to the Congresswoman Marcia Usulaki. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to greet, on behalf of the Presidents of the Court of Justice, Judge Luis Fernando Tomasi Recep, who gently welcomes us for such a great, important event today. So I would like to greet all other authorities from the prison system as well, our judges who are present here, and also our friend Dr. Elvésio and the representatives of the federal government who are here in this occasion. I would also like to greet the Congressman Beto Preto, who coordinates all actions here in the state of Paraná, in the 399 municipalities, for a good performance of the public policies of health in our state. And I would like also to say that today I'm here representing, I'm really honored to represent the President of the Legislative Assembly in Brazil, Dr. Adhemar Traiano, and all the other Congress people, and we put ourselves available at your disposal to support such a relevant debate on the policy of mental health and this fight for this anti-asylum policy. Talking about mental health is talking about pain in the soul. It is a very complex action. It's a difficult one, different from other situations in the health sector that we can measure. And when we talk in such a topic, such issue, which is really delicate and involves different situations, which bring the issue of violence, intolerance, respect, dignity, human dignity, and so on. So I would also put ourselves at the disposal to participate in this debate, and I'm sure that all Congress people there are interested in supporting the cause of life, because talking about this pain we feel in the soul is talking about people, people's dignity. Dr. Joessi, Judge Joessi, knows this for all her work in the social area, so I would like to congratulate everyone here. And maybe, Elvésio, Dr. Elvésio, maybe we need to think at national level on legislation. There are some policies, the policy of social protection and health on the other side. Maybe we can have something to make it closer, because this makes it more difficult. I know, because I came from the executive, I was there for a long time. So maybe we can talk about a legislation that would allow the policies to work together, because we are not going to make advances in this fight and other actions if we do not have them to put them close, to use public resources for these actions, for social assistance, for social protection, the system of public social. So congratulations, thank you for the opportunity, and it's an honor to participate in this debate on behalf of the state of Paraná. Now we would like to open the floor to the Council and Department of Inspection of the Prison System and also the Juvenile Justice System. From the National Council of Justice, the Judge Mauro Pereira Martins. Good morning, everyone. I would like to greet all the authorities that were named here. And by greeting the Judge Luis Fernando Tomás Kepping, I would like to greet my colleague here in the Juvenile Justice System, Dr. Luis Geraldo Fred. She is also the person who is in charge of it. So every 2 years, we leave the council, our mandates expire, but the juvenile justice system stays, and it is structured because of such an important action of my colleagues. So I would like really to greet him, and I would like also to the public services, Renata Laurindo, Melinda Miranda, and by greeting them, I greet all the servers here. It's with big satisfaction that we start this great international event organized by the National Council of Justice in partnership with the Court of Justice in the state of Paraná. And I would like to start by greeting Luis Fernando Tomás Kepping, the judge who I replaced now in the position of the judge. Today he is hosting this important event. He is the president of this court. I would like to thank for opening the doors of this court for the conduction of this important seminar and welcoming us and providing the best of this entity to carry on this event. If you allow me to call you as a Councilor Kepping, it's not exclusive this way to greet you, and this spirit of collaboration of this court, as Paraná has as a tradition to offer relevant services to the country, and a proof of these are the permanent contributions they offer to the National Council of Justice. And I can give a testimonial of this as the supervisor of the juvenile justice system, so all the support and commitment that arose in this court. But today, it is really clear on the 3.0 CNT, truth is their judges and servers that would reach a big participation in the national scenery. So here, I would like also to greet this court and Your Excellency for understanding the important position of the Court of Justice and to continue this partnership, which is really important for us as for the Brazilian justice. We have reached this moment after months building this together, searching for the best format for this event. Many meetings in order to decide for the best program that would allow us to discuss the topic of mental health without populism, without without cliches, in order to face its several challenges. And overall, the horizon of having an anti-asylum policy already implemented in our country from 2001. There has been 22 years so far. And we haven't had maybe this opportunity to reunite all these people and to make advance on all the necessary players who will have very specific demands on it so they can really make a commitment to their responsibilities in order to help those who really need mental care, who need human care, because it has people that are in the crime but need attention, medical support, interdisciplinary support, permanent support. These needs, of course, is something that they cannot find in the asylum. They do not have the best treatment, and we know there because we have visited these units monthly. The reports have reached the National Council of Justice. We are talking about a reality that is there for everyone to see. So I'm sure that this event that we start today in Curitiba will be a landmark in the institution and all the courts of justice, the Federal Court of Justice in the country, and also the Brazilian justice, to remind our commitment, the commitment we assumed with that, to transform the reality and to give back them care and adequate and permanent human care that would reach every people who have the mental suffering. It was by qualifying the action of different judges in order to instrumentalize this offering of best attention for people who suffer with mental disorders that National Council of Justice organized this seminar. And the challenges for the implementation of Law 10216 from 2001 in Brazil. More than a decade later, we have to recognize that we didn't make many advancements in order to effectivate the material needs for this anti-asylum reform and psychiatry reform here in Brazil. Once again, we are here to promote this space and also provide content and alternative that would allow us to build, for these strategies and solutions that would imply for the assistance of this mental support in the country. This concern with the dignity to treat the people with mental disorders, especially those at vulnerable situations, which are held in the prison systems and juvenile justice system. This was the biggest concern of the work Ximenes Lopes versus Brazil created in the National Council of Justice, and it would mark this commitment with the incorporation of international parameters to promote human rights in our country. This initiative of creating this was led by the Department of Inspection of the Prison System and also the Juvenile Justice System, DNF, through the Inspection Unit of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, and this was carried out with the technical support with the program Fazemos Justiça, a partnership between the National Council of Justice and the UN PNUD program. So counting with authorities from several sectors in the country, specialists on the topic, members of the executive power and civil society. There were many months of discussions and debates, qualified debates, through which the National Council of Justice have now invited those responsible for implementing this policy through a very intense work, very careful work. GT developed some actions. We proposed solutions for the difficulties faced in relation to the promotion of mental health. And one of the proposals that arose from this effort is the conduction of this international seminar aimed at deepen the discussion for the implementation of the Law 10216 from 2001. And it is why, ladies and gentlemen, that we were very careful to have the best program, all the theoretical support that you need at the light of international experience to make this possible so we can overcome the prejudice around this topic. One of the most relevant projects used by this is the minutes of the internal guidelines for the judiciary to implement the anti-asylum policy, which has become the 487. This normative act represents an important step for the protection of several rights and to ensure the Constitution, including the dignity of the human person and fundamental rights to health in total conformity, in compliance with the psychiatric reform. This resolution represents an advancement with the commitment that was assumed by Brazil to internationalize the International Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, on the promotion of the exercise of all their human rights and fundamental freedom of the persons with disability without any kind of prejudice. These initiatives reveal a commitment, and a commitment that has to be transformed in engagement of the National Council of Justice and all of us to protect these people, these vulnerable people. So we demand the conditions to ensure the human rights through the judiciary. We judges, from now on, have this guideline affirmed, and we are going to look after it. And we are going to do so by ensuring health, social protection, all the scientific knowledge and good practices that are necessary to overcome the necessities by this topic. That can be definitely solved. And for that, this is why we are here, and I wish you all a great seminar with very good debate and learning. Thank you very much.
Now we invite the following authorities, those who are present here in a directive board. So I'd like to invite everyone to actually get back to their seats, and then we're going to begin the first panel of the seminar. Thank you. activities. I'd like to invite all of you to take your seats. Thank you. And now we begin our first panel. Let's invite here the lecturers, Dr. Daniela Alberts. She's online. Dr. Leonardo Pena, Dr. Marcelo Quimate Diaz, and the mediator, Dr. Natalia Ribeiro, who will host this panel discussion. Well, we should now speak of narratives on madness, control, and rights. Here we invite Dr. Natalia to host this panel discussion. Good morning, everyone. Before we start, I'd like to celebrate this moment to debate a topic that is so relevant, so important, so that we can have an anti-asylum policy here in the judiciary system, but also considering, you know, this interchange of ideas with different actors, agents, and movements who build this policy and this struggle. So I'd like to thank the courts, you know, and also the CNJ for having me, and here we confirm the need for this debate. I thank you. I thank every lecturer who is going to be speaking here with us, Dr. Marcelo Quimate and Dr. Leonardo Pena. It is really a pleasure to host this panel discussion with people who are experts in their areas. It is important to have this multidisciplinary discussion when we look at health as a whole. So I'd like to invite Dr. Daniela Arbex. So she's here online with us. Dr. Daniela is a journalist, and she wrote bestseller The Brazilian Holocaust. It was awarded the best book in Brazil in 2013 by a specific body of assessors, and she won the Jabuti Awards in 2014. This book is published in Portugal. It got the Estrela TV in 2016, a documentary produced for HBO, and inspired the series Colonia from Globoplay that was released in June 2021. Doctor, you have 25 minutes for your presentation. Thank you. Dr. Daniela is not online at the very moment, so I'd like to invite Dr. Marcelo Quimate Diaz. He's a psychiatrist. He's a professor at Collective Health at the University of Paraná, and he is right now an assistant for the Ministry of Health. Well, Dr. Marcelo, you have 15 minutes for your presentation. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Natalia. Thank you for having me and introducing me. I also greet my colleague here, Leonardo Pena. I'd like to greet every authority here. I'd like to thank also the invitation for being here in this event and participate in this panel discussion. This is an urgent discussion, necessary discussion. We are speaking of executing a law that has been approved a long time ago in its fullest, and modifying the state's actions to make sure that the law is complied with. So when we look at mental health policies in Brazil, it does have in its history, in its structure, in its principles, we do see this process of disinstitutionalization. So also we see that it is interesting to consider within this experience for mental health policies in Brazil, when it comes to institutions being involved in it, we look at the parallel comparisons and differences that we can see since the 1990s, when we looked at many asylums being closed, many therapeutical services and care being provided at the homes of these individuals, and what we're going to be producing as far as policies. We need to consider these particularities, when we look at this discussion. I believe the first point here of discussion, and really considering that I have 15 minutes, so I should get to the main points right on so that we can discuss them. This process of removing the institutions from this scenario, contrary to what happened in the 1990s, it does not come from a movement exclusive from the health system. When we look at those who participated in this, I've seen many from Curitiba. It was a pleasure for me to participate actually as one who was managing these processes, and we participated at closing hospital beds and closing asylums and looking at the opening of substitutive therapies and care. When we look at this since the 1990s, this was a process that happened, that was planned, and it did not happen in a way. It did not. We look at how health has mechanisms. When we look at asylums, when we look at psychiatric aisles, we look at what institutions violate rights more or less, and the qualification of these institutions. So there is a process. I believe most of you are familiar with this process, which is called PNASH. It happens at a certain period of time, in a certain frequency, and what it does is it assesses institutions. It assesses the size of these institutions. It assesses the relationship between the number of health professionals and the users the users who are using the service. Also assesses the time of hospitalization. It also analyzes how these institutions work, and that made it possible for us to plan the closure, the shutdown of these asylums and psychiatric aisles. And this process was important because we had a plan. We had a plan of how to do it. There is synchronicity between the opening of alternative therapies and the closing of these. So we wanted to close first those institutions that were breaking the law the most. So when we look at this, when we look at these two aspects of the law, the judiciary aspect of shutting down these institutions, as well as the broadening of the mental health network necessary for this process to work in the best and smoothest way possible, it is really something that has to be considered. It has to be taken into account. We have to consider this carefully, because we need to understand how these people are doing, who are institutionalized, who are hospitalized. So the second process or particularity that we look at, and that we are about to look at, as we have experiences in Brazil who are successful, as we look at lower scale, we're not looking at a phenomenon that is exclusive, or that is, looking at people who are, those who live in these institutions, these facilities, and they need other strategies, other types of care in the territory. So what happens is, when we look at these asylums, we see that there's a population that has similarities amongst themselves. When we look at the psychiatric hospitals in the 90s, in the 2000s, and the similarity is that they were in a state of dangerous behavior, and there was not a complete family relations. in a way that we saw and that we still see in some situations when it comes to psychiatric hospitals. Well, these people, I had the opportunity to follow up with a few of these processes of removing individuals from these institutions and opening new therapies. There were some of these. I saw this in Natal. I saw this in Rio Grande do Norte, in Brazil, and there were so many similarities in this process. Really, when we look at necessities, demands of this population. So, in this sense, this is a technology that is developed and that is very deepened in mental health policies today. And we see that, of course, now I'm going to refer to another experience in Curitiba. We had the opening of a residence here, type 2, and it was for those individuals who were at the Nossa Senhora da Luz hospital that was closed, and those were high complexity individuals, because today the institutions that are being closed today involve individuals who not only have elements of trauma related to what they were suffering during those times, but these are aged individuals who also suffer from other issues, and this makes their stay at psychiatric aisles longer. So anyway, we look at how this technology was developed. We have it now. We have policies to implement them, and at the same time, this phenomenon, I mean, as we look at the asylums, it's not limited to the ones who are there, but also the individuals who are in the system. And we see that when the system stops from existing in this way that we are familiar with, we see that there's a new influx of care, right? And for this population specifically, it does have particularities, and it becomes different from those who we work with in this process of removing individuals from psychiatric hospitals. We do not have much research when it comes to characteristics of these individuals. We see how they are and how they behave. I mean, we see that these individuals are ones who do not stay in one place at all times, so it is hard to keep up with that. It was, especially in the past. One of the studies that we did to analyze how the population was, and this was done by the Tânia Koch organization in Rio de Janeiro, it tells us that contrary to what we had considered for psychiatric hospitals in this process of shutting down these institutions, we saw that there were other aspects of vulnerability that would really hit this community. Oftentimes, these vulnerabilities would be associated with a person who is homeless, that does drugs, and we would see that they would be taken to the asylum because they would be understood as a person for this sort of treatment because of the use of drugs. I would like to say that for this population, it is already hard to access the network, and we see that there are interesting experiences in the country, strategies, for the broadening of access, really. We're not talking about complex users who demand a specific strategy. We are speaking of a population, of a type of people who have this complexity, and they demand different ideas to be articulated. And one of these experiences that we worked with when it comes to broadening access, right? So we see that this was financed by SUNAT in the year 2013-2014, and this was created potentializing assistance for this population. A good bus actually that was constituted, it was called pro-life. It was a buzz that called Interlife or pro-life, in order to have strategies to bring these people from wherever they are into these institutions. We have today a possibility. We have this new way of including people and bringing people, bringing policies for those, not only those who are in these asylums, but also those who have little access to public policies. And many of these difficulties, when we look at the technologies that we need to develop, well, we look at the policies of mental health and we see that we need to promote strategies and we need to promote technologies. We need to bring the whole Brazilian NHS as a whole to bring, to actually tackle these issues, because the experience of including in the health system a population that is absolutely invisible, when it comes to the public policies, this is an experience for the health system, for all sectors involved. This is a matter of inclusion. This is a matter of also interrupting such a violation of human rights that is systemically done by the public policies existing in Brazil today. So it is important to consider this moment as a new moment. We need to understand that these similarities do exist, they were developed, but there are new things that should exist, that should come to exist, and these new ideas should have as a mark the capacity of the government to generate intersectorial policies, to generate policies that are not only that they're focused on the person, right? A person who is diverse, that has particularities, and demand different policies for different people, because these are different people from different places, and they have to be considered in this manner. So if we do have a new process of removing these institutions from Brazil, this process of removing these institutions has to be done in such a way that we have to do with intersectorial strategies. I am certain that the current government can have these characteristics being placed. I appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Marcelo.
Now I'd like to invite Dr. Leonardo Peno, Director for the Promotion from the Ministry of Human Rights and Citizenship, and he is part of the CDNH, which is the Human Rights Division. Well, you have 15 minutes for your presentation. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I would like to begin by greeting everyone, everyone who uses the Brazilian NHS, everyone who's present here, everyone who is who works at the Brazilian NHS, and it's a big challenge, really, to build a policy that is based on human rights and to remove these institutions from Brazil. I to greet everyone for their work, their exceptional work, and everyone who helped, build and bring together this international seminar, and Natalia, who's here mediating this panel discussion. So I believe that the two presentations that we have just heard have shared with us, especially here at the end, that we sometimes bring the technicalities of it, the legal terminologies of things, right? I was at the Congress, and I was discussing this resolution from the CNJ. I mean, it's an innovation, right? Institutional innovation, a PDL discussing such, in justice system. I would like to begin by telling everyone, Natalia, thinking about the ending of Daniela's story, that she shared with us, the ending, who are who are the people? Oh, I think we are doing the national anthem again. Huh? Oh, I see. The national anthem came to represent the people. Well, anyway, okay, let's get back to this. So, who are the people for whom this resolution, the convention, and everyone who are here, right? Everyone who's here, everyone who is, dedicating to this. We've got, national secretaries, Dr. Martha from the Ministry of Justice, Secretary of Esther from the Ministry of Health. We're going to have the Executive Ministry from the Ministry of Human Rights as well here. I mean, who are these people? This is the first challenge that we need to bring, in all these reflections. Daniela showed us who. Marcelo also showed us who. These are people to whom the Brazilian state has denied rights. Even though the law exists against asylums in Brazil, we see that the state, so the Brazilian state, was not present to guarantee the execution of the law. So we are looking at policies for mental health, but we see people, we see territories in Brazil that when we speak about the constitution, the Brazilian constitution, the legislation, we're talking about something extremely abstract. I was in Rio de Janeiro. We speak about legislation. People talk to us and they say, "What are you talking about?" Because here, this doesn't exist. These legal terminologies don't exist. Here, the police comes and they just kick the door open and they get in and they do what they have to do. There's no legal terms. So this resolution, considers this issue, and we look at how these people, the state was not present. And we are speaking of a resolution, those who are in asylums, in psychiatric hospitals, those who are at such places. There is a inspection report from the Council of Medicine in Sao Paulo. This is the hospital there. They constitute prison without treatment. This is the definition of this report in Sao Paulo. So for these people are not served by the law, by the Constitution. So they are not served by this law, this major law in our country. So this is like, there will not be any sort of a perpetual sentence. There will not be penalties with torture or the management of public life. This is what we need to consider, from the Constitution. This comes out of the popular movements who brought the strongest element of our Constitution in Brazil. These people who we are talking about in this seminar, they are not being served by the Constitution. Dr. Daniela just showed us. So there is perpetual sentences in Brazil, and they are operated by these asylums. So this is what we're talking about. This is what these people who are Brazilians, the state does not serve them, and that's why I started, greeting health professionals, because they have this challenge, especially those who are taking care of these such individuals, they need to affirm, these things, the voice they have. It's hard to have that voice, and and to participate in such a movement that is protected by the Constitution, but does not really happen. It is in the spirit. It says that all the three powers of the state should have this voice. And this is a silencing process, and this is a challenge. We have strategies for bringing up the voice of these users, of these people. So for these people who are in these places, asylums, judiciary asylums, and psychiatric isles, it is a historical challenge, really. We do have this challenge. If public policies keep on being just like, oh, this here you take care of the Brazilian national health system, here you take care of human rights, here you take care of this. If that's the case, we're not going to treat people in the correct manner. And I believe it is in this sense, and I want to discuss, narratives for the concept of madness and any other sort of mental illness. It is already considered in our legislation. We are right now 10 years of the Brasilia Consensus, and this was done together with Ministry of Health. And this was the strategic sense, the change of the model to bring the concept of users, of workers who are there, building it, day by day, these policies in Brazil. And this discussion that is open in Brazil by this resolution is to bring this debate in the legal system in Brazil to guarantee that laws are, complied with, that the laws are followed, that the law is respected. Because we hear, oh, there is no perpetual sentence in Brazil, but then it does not happen. It's obvious, right? In such a democratic state, it's an obvious thing. So what we do hope is that this resolution from the CNJ, what we did in the human rights section, which is cited, really, it's almost like the obvious, we just need to say, hey, follow the law. It's basically, listen, follow the law. This is the obvious part, but this obvious part puts thousands of people who are banished from the Constitution being fulfilled. Then so those who consider the fulfillment of the Constitution, and those who, for everyone, everyone who is equal, so this is not effective in Brazil. And we need to look at those who have the echo from the past, the regime, that happened in Brazil, with the exception, the sense of the exception of the law. This cannot continue in Brazil's legal system. And we see this in the law. We see how this is important. We see how these rights are important to be considered. So this is the same strategy that is being right now realized, and this is something that is the obvious, just the obvious. And what is the strategy? It is something that first we consider the moral panic. So how does it work? It communicates in a marketing level, focusing on the dangerous aspect of this context, saying that these are individuals who are dangerous. So they are called dangerous individuals, and they profit on this because there is an economic interest in this. So the idea is to use public money and move this money to private institutions, and they say, we're gonna release 5,800 dangerous individuals, as if this were the strategy, as if this were the concept, as if this did not exist. They create this and they bring this awful strategy of the moral panic. It creates social fear. It makes people and territories be considered dangerous. We're talking about this resolution. We're talking about these institutions, and we see this on this sort of. And you know, when I consider this as a moral panic, we operate and we consider those territories and those people as banished from law, suspended from having their rights. We should maintain, and we don't want to keep a state of exception in Brazil. We don't want to have the echoes of the past. And we reinvigorate the instruments and the institutions that will operate in Brazil, a regime of exception, and not of constitution and not of law. And this is put on the debate as a narrative, as a resolution for the CNJ. And I'd like to finish my speech by saying that the Ministry of Human Rights and the Council of Human Rights have a very important role, because they tried to finish our teams. They tried in the past to eliminate our teams. And at that time, we actually removed this. So this was an operation against the possibility of such possibility, and the council maintains this central role. You know, created a group of people to work on this and to universalize these teams in the country. We see it in all Brazilian states of the 26 states, and we see the resolution of the CNJ, and we need to create a real public policy for mental health that will look at all rights that are preserved in the Constitution. Obviously, access to health, but also access to education, work, care. And we see strategies of damage reduction, you know. And what we are debating here, and the narrative that is here on us, on CNJ, is if or not Brazil will move forward affirming democracy, affirming the state, the constitution, or if Brazil will continue to have the echoes of the past in our democracy, of exception regime that Daniela showed us. These echoes from the past will or will not be present in Brazil, or will Brazil be able to change and not have that anymore and affirm that this state is for everyone? So, as we are from the Council of Human Rights, we affirm that Brazil needs this resolution, and we need to affirm human rights are for everyone. Thank you. Okay then, so thank you everyone. There are three speakers today. Dr. Daniela especially brought to us images who were very intense, and we see that if we look at the penal code, we can see very easily who these people are. Just like the Dr. Leonardo asked us, who are these people? They are in these asylums or psychiatric units or prison without treatment. These people are, as Dr. Leonardo mentioned, the state is not present. That is, and we see that their rights are suspended, are not being, and we need to consider not only who these people are, and we see that it is clear that the objective of these institutions, and we see the effective, extinction. Dr. Leonardo just brought this to us. If we look at, the law 10,326, so we see that Dr. Marcelo brings to us this element, the necessity of these intersectorial policies focused on the subject, right? And from that point, we see how different people are, how Dr. Marcelo brought this to us. We need to think and consider how the tensions are in these areas. That's why we should see, we should listen, we should pay attention to these voices, because no one asked if they speak. I'd like to thank everyone. And now I'd like to call our host, our master of ceremony, who is going to call us for lunch. Thank you. Well, we thank everyone from this panel discussion, all doctors who spoke with us today. And now I would like to tell you that in the afternoon you need to register your presence for those who are online or here, those who are present here. So it's necessary to register once more after you come back from lunch. And now we're gonna have lunch, and we're gonna be back at 2:30 p.m. Thank you and see you soon. Have a great lunch. Thank you.